and welcome to the video on monogenetic inheritance. We'll also be looking at how we can use the test cross to determine the genotype of an individual. So monogenetic inheritance is the simplest form, but in the overall patterns of inheritance topic there's quite a lot to cover, so we're just going to start with this. When we're talking about monogenetic inheritance, we're talking about just one characteristic, and this can be shown in a monohybrid cross. So if we were looking at plants, so we could have tall stemmed plants or short stemmed plants, and what we would represent this by is letters that can either be uppercase or lowercase. So, and if I had a uppercase T, this would be a dominant allele. If I had a lowercase t, it'd be a recessive allele. And what that means is that I would need only one dominant allele for the trait to be expressed in the phenotype, but for the recessive allele I need two recessive alleles for that trait to be expressed in the phenotype, or in other words, it would have to be a homozygous, so we need two recessive alleles. So if we're looking at, so it would have to be little t, and big T, big T. So for this we could have big T, or we could have big T, little t. That would be heterozygous. Both would show tall stemmed. If we were to cross these two individuals, then we would get the first generation would all be heterozygous, and they would all be tall stemmed because this is the dominant trait. So that would be what is expressed. And then if we were to cross all two of these individuals, we could show this in a Punnett Square, which is how we show most of these inheritances. So we've got our gametes. So we know that if we've both parents are T heterozygous, we know that the gametes, they're going to have dominant and recessive. That's for both of them, and we can see that be T, big T, little t, big T, little t, and two little t's there. And here we can see that these three would all be tall. This one would be 25% would be homozygous dominant, 50% would be heterozygous, and 25% would be homozygous recessive. So we put this in a ratio, so we'd have 3:1 because we've got 3 tall plants or 3 individuals showing the dominant trait, and only one showing the recessive trait of being short-stemmed. And then, so we can use this kind of inheritance to determine whether an individual showing the dominant trait is homozygous or heterozygous. Because if we had a tall stem plant, we don't know whether this is TT or T little t. Just by looking at it, we won't be able to know that. So what we would do is we would get a short stem plant, and because we know that would have to have two recessive alleles to be expressing this short stem characteristic, we know that that's homozygous recessive. So if we crossed these two individuals, and we would be looking at their offspring to see if there were any short stem plants. And if there were any short stem plants, then we would know that this tall stem, the parent, would have to be heterozygous. Because if I put this in a diagram, we have T, little t, and then T, T. We've got T, 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 T. So we could have 50% of them could be short-stemmed, but if we had the dominant, then they would all be heterozygous. So this would be capital. So they would all show tall stemmed. So that is how we can determine whether the genotype of an individual using this test cross. That's just a brief introduction to this topic. We'll be going into more detail about this in future videos. Thank you for watching.